countdown to kickoff, baby.
Yes, a countdown to kickoff, baby. And Georgia heading into Oxford, the Grove.
The Grove.
To play the 7-2 Ole Miss Rebels. Georgia at 7-1, of course. And this is the last big road test during the regular season. And we're going to break this game down a good bit and give our takes on what we expect to see Saturday, Smooch. And I think let's look at Ole Miss's schedule.
Yeah, so I think that when you talk about Georgia fans, I've listened to a couple of the podcasts this week as well as listened to some of our fans. We just love about this time of year to hit the panic button. And Ole Miss throws up some points last week on a bad team. And, all of a sudden they're this juggernaut. But let's look at the season. This was, if you remember, it was Ole Miss and Auburn, right, that were beating the fool out of these no-name teams to start the season, and everyone was rushing to coronate them.
Ole Miss, Auburn, and Tennessee.
Right. So they opened with the Furman Paladins. Do you know what a paladin is?
That's some kind of a elephant.
I think a pachyderm paladin. Yeah.
I think so.
Anyway, they won 76-0. Then they went to the mighty Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders, where they won 52-3. Then a 40-6 Wake Forest team, and then they went to a place where we used to play a lot of wiffle ball, Georgia Southern, and Georgia Southern 52-13. Now you look at those scores, Troop Brinson, and you're looking at 200-something points in the first 4 games, right? Averaging over 50 points a game. And you're like, oh, this team's a juggernaut. And then they just simply play a mid-SEC team in Kentucky. They score 17 and they lose 20-17. They then take care of a South Carolina team, 27-3, which that team has been up and down all year. But they take care of a South Carolina team, 27-3. Then it's time to finally play a quality SEC team. They again lay an egg. They score but 26 points, and they lose 29-26 to LSU. Following that, they've got Oklahoma, which Oklahoma's probably been the most disappointing SEC team of any SEC team this year. They handle that game in lackluster, boring fashion, 26-14. And then you've got this past week, which, if you listen to the media, is the only game that's ever mattered for this team. They ran up a 63-point, just absolute, six touchdowns for Jackson Dart. Had a receiver with 5 touchdown receptions. They win 63-31. Nobody's talking about the fact that they gave up 24 in the second half. But anyway, 63-31. And here we are. They went from underachieving team eking along to juggernaut in just 1 week, Troop.
Yeah, and they are a dangerous team, and they are at home, and that matters for a lot of teams. I mean, Georgia's played some really tough home games, away games this year, so that won't be a factor for Georgia, but it may be a factor for Ole Miss and them playing their best game. So looking at their strengths, I mean, Jackson Dart is a good quarterback. He's been a good quarterback in his career against teams who were mediocre to bad. And so he really, he makes himself look like a big-time NFL prospect in some of those games because he can run the ball. He's physical, and he throws the ball around the field. But it's when he plays really good teams that he tends to show where his deficiencies are. And maybe it's just sometimes that his team has deficiencies. We saw it's tough for me to get what happened last year out of my mind. They were 8-1, and they were on top of the world, and Georgia came in there, and it was close in the first quarter, and then Georgia took over and put 52 points on them, had 600 yards of offense, 300 passing and 300 running, and that was like, no, you are so far away from where you thought you were, beating up on these teams who aren't up to speed, up to par. And so it's tough for me to get by that. But I think I need to. I really think that they have a shot. When I looked at this game to start the season, this was game I picked out. This could be one of those games that we don't play our best. and they can beat you because they can put some points up on the board. All it takes is hitting some of those shot plays and being on the money, because lots of teams have shot plays drawn up and have receivers run open and just don't connect.
Right.
But all it takes is hitting 2 or 3 of them, and that game has changed. So looking at their strengths, Smooch, we said their quarterback and their defensive front. And they got a pretty good defensive front. I don't know how good they are. I know some pundits will tell you they're at least arguably one of the best or the best in the SEC. I don't really feel that. I'll have to see more. I know Georgia has had issues sometimes at their tackle position, but not in terms of just making it a big problem for Beck running for his life. But that's what I see so far as their strengths.
The problem is they haven't played a team with an offense this year. I mean, they played LSU. That's the only team with a viable offense that they've played. They gave up 29 and lost. So
Nussmeier threw for 337 in that. So that's really the only passing quarterback they played that had that kind of an arm.
Right. I mean, if you look at their schedule and the way it sets up, there's just nothing on it so far. Is this team good enough to beat Georgia? 100%. Lane Kiffin's a schemer, and schemers can get hot. What Kirby did to Lane last year, he needs to do this year. He made Lane coach against him. It was 14-14, right?
Yeah, it seemed like it was.
It was 14-14, and they were settling in for the shootout, for the slugfest, right? And then Kirby made adjustments, and Lane didn't. And the game got out of hand really. I think they scored 3 more points from there on out, something like that. Mm-hmm. And the game got out of hand. But, yeah, I agree with you. I think the front 7 looks good. Looks like it has NFL players on it. But it's like you keep saying, we just don't know. I think it's really irresponsible to celebrate a team that hasn't played anyone outside of LSU as having a top 10 defense.
Yeah, and they've been fairly one-dimensional. I don't think that they have the running game that's going to threaten Georgia. I really don't. If they do, then that would change things for sure. But they're just quarterbacks who don't have or have one-dimensional offenses just don't usually beat Georgia.
Right.
Now, there's some other things going on. If you'd have talked to us a couple of weeks ago after Georgia had played Texas and won in that fashion, and Georgia still played really good defense last week against Florida, I would have felt a little differently. But I'm a little concerned about this game. And here's some reasons why I think Georgia can do well. I think that Georgia's defensive front really matches up against Ole Miss's offensive front.
Yes.
I think those guys are healthy if they've been all year, and there's nobody suspended for the first half. He's going to try to take his shots, but he's mobile. I say Dart's mobile enough. I think this Georgia defense is on par, at least as a whole, to what they had in 2021. Maybe a notch below that, but still talent-wise and the ability up front and the talent in the back, defensive backfield, they have that kind of – you saw what they did to Texas. Yeah. And so that's where I feel best about this game is our defense, especially our front 7 against those guys and just harassing Dart and tackles for losses and sacks and turnovers as well.
That's what I have circled on my page right here is turnovers.
So that's where I am with that. And like I said, Dart – really has only played great against teams that I feel like they're without good defenses. He hasn't had one of those moments, Smooch, where he's playing a great team where you're like, oh my goodness, why aren't we talking about him for the Heisman? He's had those expectations put on him, but the performance has never really matched up in the marquee games where it has to happen.
Yeah, when you look at guys that win the Heisman, they have those iconic moments. Now, this would be one for Dart. He comes out and throws 6 touchdowns against Georgia. Then you really do have Heisman buzz. But Heisman buzz is not earned against Arkansas, Furman, Middle Tennessee, and Georgia Southern. That's not how you earn Heisman buzz. You get out there and you play the teams that are in competition. You play as good a teams as you can, and then you win when you do. On the offensive side of the ball, I echo pretty much everything that you said. Jackson Dart, I have in my notes right here, Jackson Dart is not Jalen Milroe. When they say Georgia struggles with mobile quarterbacks, they're talking about a little different animal than is Jackson Dart. He's a 225-pound kind of thudder, And he certainly can pick up a first down, but he's not going to take over the game with his legs. Those are the types of guys Georgia can struggle with from time to time. The running back's gone, right? Parrish, he hurt himself pretty. It looks like it'd be a very serious injury. I haven't heard the final whatever it was.
He's out. Yeah,
he's out. But that's 10 touchdowns. That's 700 yards and 10 touchdowns. The next running back has 200 yards on the season. That's the next down on the depth chart. So there's got to be a drop off there. And then I guess Trey Harris, who is an all world type of receiver, we just really don't know what's going on there. I've looked on. I've seen several different things. I've seen game time decision. I've seen he's going to play. So we just won't know. But like I said, they scored 6 touchdowns. They had 6 passing touchdowns last week without him. So
that probably says more about Arkansas. I mean, I'm not saying Ole Miss is not a quality team. I think they are, but I think they're that one notch below kind of quality team that if they play their perfect game, if they play an A game, then they can beat most anybody, or it can be a shootout. I just feel like a lot of times those games are shootouts. If they score a lot, good teams will score a lot too. But so here's what I wrote down, Smooch. I'm trying my takeaways from this game. You can chime in what you think.
Yeah.
I do think Ole Miss can sling it. I do believe that they are going to try to put the ball in the air a good bit. I mean, what else are they going to do? They're going to take shots after shot after shot. Now, if those plays take long to develop, we saw that Georgia's not going to give you, at this point in the season, you're not getting a lot of time to throw the ball. So I'm going to be curious to see how they can make that work, because they're not oblivious to the time. They know how much time they're going to have. So these long developing plays are going to have to I'm very curious to see how they scheme it up.
Yeah, and something I've said before that has always been a kiss of death for the other team, Jackson Dart holds on to the ball. He does. He uses his legs, and he holds on to the ball. That's not going to work in this game.
Well, Jalen Walker is happy to know that, I'm sure, and so is Michael Williams and some of those other linebackers. I do think that both of these teams statistically haven't had strong running games this year, so I feel like if one of these teams is going to need to be able to run the ball, whichever team doesn't mean they're going to win, but, man, they're going to have a much better chance in the second half and controlling the clock and I guess planning a game or playing a game at their speed, whichever team's able to do that. When you can run the ball, you can kind of be the team that dictates, and I think that's important. I don't know how healthy Georgia is at running back. Even if they are healthy, and we're kind of hearing on ETN that it may be a pain tolerance type of thing, and he should be okay. But if he can tolerate the play, he shouldn't be worried about getting injured worse. And they're going to need him. I mean, you need more than Cash Jones and freshman and Frazier, even though they could have great games again.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, it was great to see Dwight Phillips in the game, but before the season, I would have said if you're relying on a Dwight Phillips touchdown late in the game, you're in a bad situation running back wise. And we saw that last week. And so, love to see him. Can't wait to see that speed, but we need those guys in front. And we need some of the guys that have been out for a long time this year to get better too and get back. So it's just going to come down. ETN, we have no magic information, just that he's out there, he's doing drills, he's running, he's working on ball security drills to make sure it doesn't hurt him to carry the ball, but it's just going to come down to how much it hurts and can he go.
Yeah. I do feel like home field advantage is big in this game, especially not in terms of how Georgia plays, but in terms of how Ole Miss plays. And that worries me a bit. They could put together that perfect game or near perfect game. And I think they are a very motivated team right now because of another loss in their season. They're getting ready for whatever bowl they got an option for, and they still have an opportunity to get into the playoffs. It's going to have to happen today, or excuse me, Saturday.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You just put your finger on something. Isn't it odd that we're a month away from the end of the season, and this game has a lot to do with Lane Kiffin, even long term at Ole Miss. If he goes out and wins this game, he's golden. They're looking at going and winning out, making the playoff, and the Lane Kiffin haters are gone. If he loses this game, flip it all around. They're going to say he can't win the big game. He's just a guy that schemes, beats bad teams, and can't get it done when he needs to. It's odd to have that much hanging on a game that's just a season game a month from the end of the season. Yeah.
And if I'd have had to predict the loss at one point this year, looking at the season we started, I was thinking about this game because I said Georgia's going to be highly motivated for Texas and Alabama, and those are games Georgia's going to typically see their best game in those games. But then last year you saw this game. It was in Athens, 52-17. I got a couple of ifs, and the ifs are about Georgia. We don't usually do ifs for Georgia. We make fun of other fans, right. But those are a little bit different. These ifs are about Georgia, and defensively, the first if is if Georgia's pass rush and tackling are elite, Georgia wins. Georgia wins. If that negates whatever you want to say to that dart passing game. If the pass rush gets home and just harasses him, Georgia's going to have a fun time, just like it did against Texas. Yeah, have a lot of fun in this game. If Georgia, I don't see why they wouldn't, because that's where their advantage is. So that's my first big if. That happens, Georgia wins. The other if Carson Beck protects the football, UGA wins. If he protects the football, he don't turn the ball over and help Ole Miss, Georgia's going to score a lot of points. And I'll take Georgia's defense any day of the week if Beck is playing solid, clean football.
It's amazing to think that Carson Beck could become he could become a significantly better player right now by simply throwing incompletions and just throwing the ball away. Like, that would be a market improvement in a couple of take a sack, throw the ball away, whatever you got to do. Let's not have those brain hitches or whatever that keep happening in the middle of these games. I agree, that's a huge one. If Carson Beck throws 0 interceptions in this game, they win, period. The rest of it takes care of itself.
Well, and if he just has one of those games like we went to this year, the Auburn game, where he was just surgical, took exactly what they gave him, and took the big plays when they were there, but he was fine to drive the field. And I'm okay with that. And plus, statistically, Ole Miss gives that up. They give up that 10 to 20 range in the middle of the field. They give those plays up a lot. That's where Carson's usually pretty good right there. Georgia's usually really good on some of those dig routes right across. And so I feel good about that, but I just don't know. And after the Florida game, of course, we were in our chat group just giving Carson, it was like, Carson Beck, what the heck? Let's go. Yeah. And we were like, okay, he's just not that guy, and he's just never going to be. Doesn't look like it to this point, whatever the reason. I don't care. This doesn't look like he's got that in him, that ability. He's got the ability, but for whatever is not connecting, that's where. But as the week's gone on, I'm more like, okay, well, just don't have any of those game-changing type turnovers. It's okay. If you throw the ball 40 times, you're going to turn the ball over every once in a while. But he's turning his balls over in the first half a lot. So somebody said that too. I think I even see. You throw the ball 50 times, you're going to turn it over. But he's turning it over in the first 15 passes.
First 2 drives, yeah, absolutely.
So that's where I sit. I mean, either team can play. That's what football is about. That's what sports is about. Who's going to play better? Because you could say, put it on paper, and Georgia's going to win this game. Yeah. But who's going to play better Saturday?
I think if Georgia plays 85% or above, they win. That's kind of how I look at it. They don't even have to play perfect to win this game, but they cannot play at the level they played against the Florida Gators and win this game. I firmly believe that. Now, one of the things that is comforting is the Alabama game showed us our guys, Kirby's guys, are not afraid of a fourth quarter. They're not afraid of, with the game on the line, putting it all out there. In fact, they're eerily comfortable there. So if we were to find ourselves in one of those 42 to 35 shootouts, I still feel confident. But even with that, just don't give them the ball. If you have to punt. You got the best punter in football. Punt. Do not give them the ball on first down by fumbling or throwing a stupid pick. That changes momentum in a way. If you knew how bad interceptions affect other teams, you'd realize how good Georgia's defense is, because they have erased 3 or 4 interceptions that could have been backbreakers this year just because they're so elite. They did it in the Texas game. They did it against Florida. I wonder how many elite defenses have had, 11 interceptions this year and are still elite defenses. I bet you there's not many.
Well, this is going to be what this game's going to tell me, Smooch, is the maturity of this team, because I don't think that, in my mind, Ole Miss has Georgia's attention as much as like Texas or Alabama or Clemson. I just don't think they do. So it was a tendency in that kind of a situation to maybe come out flat. Georgia can't come out flat. I don't want to be looking at this game at halftime and say Georgia just came out flat, right. And they're on the stretch run. And I mean, they'll be looking towards that home game, night game next week at Tennessee, and you can't come out flat this game, or you're going to be with no margin for error. And this is just a game you should win as a program.
Right.
Ole Miss might have a great shot. They might have a good quarterback, an experienced quarterback, a good defense, and the transfers that have come in there have produced, and they may have a best shot. But as a program, this is a game that Georgia should win.
Right.
Especially right now, Georgia got an experienced quarterback and a very salty defense and some skilled players. They got, like I said, this might be the game that Nate Frazier goes for $150. Hey, Kendall Milton had 130 yards against them last year.
That's right.
But this might be one of those games where he just, he's getting more and more comfortable. The game's slowing down for him. It has to. And he's looked good anyway. Just sometimes one step away or move away from breaking it. Might be that type of game. Might be a 4-quarter game. I don't anticipate it going like it did last year, Smooch, 52 to 17.
No, I'm right there with you on that. I don't see that happening. I'm actually, well, I don't know, we haven't done scores yet.
Yeah, but we're about to.
Okay, good. Perfect transition. No, I'm actually leaning a lot lower this year in terms of just total score.
Yeah. Here's where the if comes in, and this is hedging my best. And I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do it just because I want to do it, and it's our show. So if Ole Miss plays their type of game and Georgia plays the type of game that they come out flat or they turn the ball over, I got Ole Miss winning this game. 34-24. 34-24. If Ole Miss plays to their potential and Georgia comes out a little flat, that's what I got. Now, there's a flip side of that. If Georgia tackles well and the pass rush is what we've seen lately, and it really should be, and Beck protects the ball, Georgia's going to win this game 40-23.
Okay.
Man, that's so unfair to be able to go either way because we're not like keeping tally of who was right and who was wrong anyway.
No, just when I got the Tennessee game right last year at 38-10, that's the only time we kept track. But who's counting, right? No, I actually think that Georgia comes out. They use the Auburn approach. You put your finger on it, and I was saving it for this last part. I really do. I think it's surgical. I think they are focused on discipline as well as explosion. I've got the Dogs winning 28-13 is what I say.
Okay. Not bad. And if they play defense like they're able to play, and Lane Kiffin's he's a good offensive coordinator now. He's going to scheme up some stuff. But you know what eliminates all that scheme and all that, some of that, the flash is a defense that just doesn't give you time, just gives you no time, cuts that window down where you don't have as much time, and players start panicking a bit. They do things they're not comfortable doing. And plus, this is the best team they played this year. This is Georgia has their attention, I guarantee you. But still, this is the best team they have played offensively, defensively, and they're going to be tested. We'll see if they're a team that can take a step. At least they got 2 losses, so they're not taking a big step. But this would be a huge W for Kiffin and the Rebels at the end of their season.
Yeah, and I think that what you just said there, I think that's the reason I do not feel, barring a collapse of the Dogs, that Ole Miss wins this game, and it's for the very reason of that. Georgia has chemistry. The players at Georgia were recruited by Georgia. They came to Georgia. They've developed at Georgia. Ole Miss's defense is a gun for hire type of defense, and that's fine and good when you're beating up the weak kids in the playground. But when it comes down to a 4-quarter game, taking them out into deep water to see if they can swim with you, chemistry and character become a huge part of it. And Lane Kiffin has never instilled or valued chemistry and character. And I think that's where the Dogs can pull away late.
I mean, the evidence has always been there. That's kind of the moniker for Lane Kiffin, and he can look wonderful in some aspects, but just in terms of building a successful program, it really hasn't happened. And can he do it? And Kirby Smart's shown you time after time again, when the Dogs are doubted and the chips are down a little bit, they don't feel sorry for themselves. You see some of their best performances. That's right. And the defense always travels. So that's what makes me feel good. And at some point, you feel like Beck's got to get it together and have just a spectacular game.
Right.
He threw over 300 yards last week, but just throw a couple of those balls away, and you're talking completely different about that game. So, they can put it together, and past the history of these two programs show you that Georgia probably will win this game.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming down. I want a satisfying win. We talked about that on the show earlier this week. I want a satisfying win where the Dogs are. I really did enjoy the Auburn game as much as people were like, it was a boring game. The game was never in doubt. That's the kind of game I like, and I just want to see Georgia take care of business for 4 full quarters and not give us all this anxiety about what's going to happen if we get to the playoff. I want an anxiety-free football game. That's what I want.
Yeah, and then we can enjoy it, do a little rapid reaction, and then settle in for the Alabama-LSU game, which will be very interesting Saturday night. And plus, with a victory, if Tennessee wins against Mississippi State and Georgia wins Saturday against Ole Miss, that sets up a huge showdown in Athens. It's going to be the same anyway. It's going to be a night game in Athens the week of the 16th, and we can't wait for that. We hope both of those teams win and come in on cloud 9.
On fire. I want both of them on fire. I want Tennessee thinking that the national championship is theirs to lose when they come to Athens.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Countdown to kickoff. We'll hopefully be back in a couple of days and give you a rapid reaction from Georgia's big victory in Oxford, Mississippi.
All right. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Countdown to kickoff, baby.